There are a lot of choices to make nowadays in Apex Legends, and sometimes it can be pretty tricky to know whether or not you're making the right decisions. So in today's video, I wanted to bring you guys my first ever tier list. And with this being my first tier list, I wanted to make sure that we made it right. So this is going to be the ultimate tier list. It's going to include both legends and weapons, and it's going to have a competitive and a for fun bracket. So without any further ado, let's get into it. For the Legends tier list, we are going to start with the Assault, followed by the Support, the Recons, the Controllers, then the Skirmishers. So our first Legend on the table here is Ashe. When it comes to a competitive scene, I think that she still falls into that middle tier just because her tactical can be useful, but when you compare it to others around her, it's just not quite at the same level. So for the competitive side, Ashe is going to fall into the B tier for me. On the pub side, I think that Ashe is once again kind of a mid-level legend. She has her things that can be enjoyable. She can make really good offensive plays with the use of her ult and her tactical simultaneously, obviously getting more information from her passive. So I think that once again, she's going to fall into the B tier. So our next legend is Ballistic. And on the competitive side of things, it's unfortunately very, very clear that he is the worst legend in the game. His ultimate can offer some upside, but when you look at his entire kit as a whole and you compare it to the other legends that are available in the game, he simply does not cut it. So for me, he's going to be a D tier legend for competitive. On the fun side of things, I do think that Ballistic goes up a little bit here, just with the fact that his passive allows you to carry 3 different weapons. So for me, I like to snipe. I get to hold my sniper without kind of losing the versatility of the different weapons that I select. And then his ultimate can be lots of fun to use, and it can win you lots of fights. So for fun, I'm going to put Ballistic into the C tier. Next on our list is Bangalore, and Bangalore has gone through a number of nerfs recently, but she's still a great legend. I think that she always will be. So for me, on the competitive side of things, Bang's smokes and her ult and her passive all together makes her a really, really versatile, really well-balanced legend. And so for me, Bang remains in the A tier. On the fun side of things, once again, Bang is incredibly versatile, and she's excellent for new players. For the fun factor though, I think that I'm going to bring her down just to the B tier. She's great, she is enjoyable to use, but just doesn't quite have any of those abilities that are like, yeah, this is awesome, I'm having a great time playing. Next on our list is Old Fusey, and when it comes to competitive, I do think that his passive, tactical, and ultimate working together helps to create a really well-balanced legend that's able to attack when you want it, but also able to hold off areas and allow you to retreat when you also need it. He's super fun to play, but when it comes to competitive, I am going to place him into the A tier. Just with the ability to hold extra grenades, it is so useful. His knuckle clusters are incredible in so many different situations. He falls into the A tier for me. On the fun side of things, sometimes it is so fun to be a pest, and that is just exactly what Fuse is. So for me, he is the first one into our A tier for today. Mad Maggie is next, and to be honest with you guys, she has just been one of those legends that seems to continually be climbing. She's just slowly been getting better and better, and I think now she's at a pretty good point. For me, she's ending up between the A and the B tier, but I think that for competitive, I'm actually going to put her at the A. Her drill as well as her ultimate are just really, really good in certain situations, so she's going to be in the A tier for me. When it comes to playing just for fun, the movement that you get from her ultimate and the nagginess of her drills once again makes her a pretty fun character to play. If you're somebody that enjoys using shotguns, even better, right? So for me, I'm going to put her in the B tier, but I could easily see her going up in anybody else's lists. So now onto the support legends with Conduit starting it off for us here. I do think that even though she's been nerfed quite a bit recently, Conduit is still a very, very good pick. And for me on the competitive side of things, the combination of her ult and her tactical together, that puts it into the A tier for me. Next on the list here is Gibraltar, and I still love to play Gibby, but obviously you've seen that his pick rates have varied significantly over the last couple of seasons here. He's kind of trended downwards when he used to be kind of the god of ranked play. But for me, I think that Gibby is still quite a well-rounded character, but just being such a big guy can sometimes be difficult. I'm going to be putting him in the B tier, although you could also see him move up to the A tier. On the fun side of things, Gibraltar kind of falls in between the A and B tier. For me personally though, I love using snipers, so having his arm shield as a little bit of a buffer when we're using snipers can be excellent. And then fighting with his bubbles is also tons of fun. So for me, Gibby is going to go into the A tier. Lifeline's rework with the introduction to the new perk system has significantly improved her viability in ranked play, and it's for that reason that she is also going to be an A tier legend for me when it comes to competitive. Just being that team medic is so good. Her care package is far more useful than it used to be, and she's just a really balanced legend when it comes to being that team medic, scooping your team up off the ground and helping you win fights. When it comes to playing just for fun, as much as being the team medic is an awesome role and it can be enjoyable, I don't think that it's quite as enjoyable as a lot of the other characters here in the game. So for the fun factor, I think that Lifeline is going to fall into this C tier. Choosing Loba as your legend is funny because I think that her personality kind of blends in with how I rank her. She's kind of a luxury to have on a team. It's amazing to be able to use her black market for loot, but when it comes to actual effect for a competitive comp, I don't think that she does enough. So for me, Loba is going to fall into the C tier for competitive play. On the fun side of things, I do think that Loba goes up quite a bit here. Having her black market, which allows you to use the weapons that you want to use while also having some pretty good attachments for them, is amazing when it comes to just enjoying your time playing the game. And her bracelet also is an excellent movement mechanism to help you get around the map. So for me, when it comes to fun, Loba is actually S tier. Newcastle is one of those legends that you don't see played too often, but when you face a good one, you really know it because they can absolutely change a fight, especially when it comes to competitive play. And for that reason, I'm going to also have Newcastle in A tier. When it comes to the fun side of things, I do think that Newcastle is a pretty good pick. His abilities can be pretty enjoyable to use, and just kind of feeling like the defender of your team is a pretty sweet feeling. So for me, Newcastle is going to be B tier. Moving on to my personal main, Mirage. In the competitive side of things, he is not the best pick, although he has gotten better with the introduction of the perk system and the buffs that he received through that. When it comes to competitive, though, I think that he belongs in the B tier. You're able to make some plays with your dummies, but you're just not going to catch people off quite as much in ranked play as you are in pubs. On the fun side of things, though, he is the easiest person to put in the S tier that you've ever seen. The ability to go out with his ultimate and just boozle an entire squad or play a certain decoy perfectly and just make your enemies look silly is my favorite way to enjoy the game, as you guys already know if you support the channel. But he is my absolute favorite legend. Absolutely S tier, not a question about it. Looking at our Recon legends, Bloodhound is going to be the first one that we take a peek at, and they are going to be going into the A tier. With the buffs that they've received recently, they're kind of back up to where they were before, not quite at the level, but the introduction of the perks has definitely boosted them up significantly. When it comes to competitive play, the amount of intel that you can get with them is really, really impressive and super useful for your team. Absolutely A tier. On the fun side of things, it doesn't change at all for me. Once again, going to be in that A tier. The scans are great. Using the ultimate is one of the most enjoyable things in the entire game, so easily A tier for me as well. Seer is a hilarious legend to me because when he came out, he was the most busted in the entire game, but now he is very easily D tier for both competitive and for fun for me personally. He just doesn't fill the cup, but it's crazy to think that when he first came out, he was the most enjoyable legend, the strongest legend, everything that you could throw at him, he had it, but nowadays he is a solid D tier legend to me. And I don't see that changing. The next legend on our list here is Vantage, and folks of the channel know that I absolutely love playing Vantage, and I do think that when playing competitively, Vantage is a very, very good legend. She's going to also fit into the A tier here, and it comes through her passive, being able to use the scope to get so much intel about your enemies, the composition of the team, the shield levels of the team, and then also with the introduction of the perks, she can now scan both types of beacons. So when you're playing ranked, you're able to know where the enemies are while also knowing where the end storms are going to be. So she's super versatile. And then also with the boost of movement with her bat, I think that she's an excellent pick. Definitely A tier. As the fans of the channel know, I love to snipe, and who better than Vantage to snipe with? She feels like you can't miss when you're using her ultimate. Echo is an excellent way to get around the map. Super, super fun to use. So for me, Vantage is S tier. Crypto is a funny pick here because for competitive, Crypto can either be one of the absolute best legends or he can be one of the absolute worst legends. And it's because he has one of the largest skill gaps in the entire game. Depending on how you're using him, he can either be incredible for the team or he can be the reason that your team's losing every single game. So for me, I'm going to be putting Crypto into the B tier, just knowing that he can be A, possibly S tier with the best players, but with your typical average Joe going into ranked, he's probably going to be D tier. On the fun side of things, I do think that Crypto has some viability because he can be enjoyable to use, but once again, there's just kind of more enjoyable legends to use. So for me, Crypto is going to be a C tier. She's seen a lot of nerfs over the last little bit here, and the introduction of the perk system didn't really help her out a whole lot, but regardless, she's still an excellent pick when it comes to comp. So she is going to be an A tier legend for me. On the fun side of things, her ability to control an area as well as pop in and out of her veil are super, super enjoyable things to do. So for me, Cat falls into the B tier of legends. For this legend, we are going to be brief with it because if you know, I'm not a fan of this legend. He is the most annoying legend in the game to me personally. He is very good though. When it comes to comp, he is easily an A tier legend. He has been excellent kind of throughout the entirety of Apex. He's gone up and down throughout the metas, but once again, he is just standing strong. When it comes to fun, I'm going to put him D tier, although I know he probably doesn't belong there. It's just the fact that I do not like this guy. Next on our list here is the creator of the storm herself, Wattson. And when it comes to competitive, she is a very, very good pick once again. The introduction of the perk system definitely buffed her significantly. She can now have 2 of her pylons or have her pylons give you arc stars, which is an amazing ability when it comes to competitive play, when you're locking down those certain areas with her fences, just being able to spawn in grenades, different things like that. She's a very, very good legend, and for me, she's also going to fit into that A tier. On the fun side of things, she is once again a good legend, but I think that she isn't quite as high as the A tier for fun, just because she lacks movement abilities and anything that's too crazy. She can make good plays, but you have to be quite skilled in order to do that. So for me, Wattson is going to be B tier. All right, so we're looking at our last control legend now, Rampart. And when it comes to comp, she can be a good pick. Some of her kit has some pretty good upside, but I think that when it comes down to the nitty gritty of the competitive games, it's just a little bit too tough for her. There's too many counters to her mobile shields. So for me, she is going to be B tier. On the fun side of things though, Rampart is one of those characters for me that I just love to pick up and play. Using her mobile shields to just obliterate enemies and then pulling out Sheila to just go even further down that road is so enjoyable. If you decide to pull out an LMG with her, you feel like you can shoot forever. She's a really, really fun character, and for me, she is going to be A tier for fun. Horizon is another legend that has seen lots of nerfs recently, but she continues to be such a good pick just because of how good her kit is. It has been since she came out. She's been one that's just consistently been nerfed, but she continues to be a great pick. For me, Horizon continues to be A tier. We might have to revisit the A tier here a little bit later on, but she is so good, certainly belongs there. On the fun side of things, Horizon is once again such an enjoyable legend. Her passive just makes you feel like butter as you move across the map, and her tactical is great at moving not just you, but also your teammates, while her ultimate isn't anything to complain about either. So for me, Horizon is the 4th one in the S tier for fun. In the current season, I just don't think that Octane has enough in his kit to be a viable pick for ranked. His abilities are great, but they're very personal. They aren't affecting his team a whole lot. And so it's for that reason that for Octane, I think that he is a C tier ranked legend. When it comes to fun though, he's one of the legends that's hard to beat for having a great time playing the game. For me, Octane is easily an A tier legend, possibly moving up into that S. Pathfinder is a great pick anytime you play the game, but I do think that when you're playing ranked, there's a little bit more that you need from him in order to be into that S or A tier. So for me, Pathfinder is going to be B tier. I think that his ultimate zipline is an amazing ability to help you rotate with your team, while also helping you to find high ground in certain fighting situations. But I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more for him to fall into that A or S tier. For having a great time playing the game though, Pathfinder is an easy S. His zipline is probably the coolest mechanic in the entire game. Just the physics that go along with it is so enjoyable to play around with. Absolutely S tier. Revenant is one of those legends that is still just, even after being nerfed, it's still unbelievable in this meta. His ultimate ability is still just so good. So for me, Revenant in a competitive sense is going to be A tier. On the fun side of things, I think that Revenant once again is one of the easy S tiers to place. His ultimate for new players just helps you to win more and more fights, and then having movement ability on top of that is excellent. So for me, Revenant would be an S tier legend to play. When it comes to comp, I do think that Valkyrie is an excellent pick still. Her ultimate ability is so good for repositioning. I think that her passive could be better, but realistically, when you are repositioning new places, knowing what you're landing on is so helpful. And then her tactical is also a great ability. So for me, Valkyrie is a very versatile player, and she does help the team to succeed. So she is going to be another A tier. When it comes to fun, the introduction of the perk system brought Valkyrie back to her former glory. She is so mobile when she's using her jetpack. So for me, she is going to be an S tier legend. On to our last legend now, Wraith. And when it comes to competitive play, I do think that her kit is extremely versatile and very strong. I think that the introduction of the perks helped her to reach another level. All of the options that are available to you there are incredibly strong, and it makes her an excellent pick, whether it's in competitive or just for fun. For me, Wraith is going to be the first S tier legend, although I think when we reshuffle this, she will not be the only one. She is so good. Having the ability to know when teams are pushing in on you is unparalleled in the entire game, and just she is such a good legend. Now on the fun side of things, I think that once again she falls into the S tier. Her kit is just so versatile. It's so fun getting to pick your fights and using her invincibility to relocate yourself and put yourself at an advantage. Her portals are great. Kidnapping people is one of my favorite things to do in the game. So yeah, she's just an amazing legend. Definitely double S tier. All right, this is the final version of our Legends ranked bracket. After a few revisions, you're going to see that we have a significantly different looking tier list than we originally had. We have plenty more in that S tier of Legends. So be sure to let me know down in the comments below who you think I rated too highly, who was rated too lowly, and who I got just right. So now we have the weapons tier list. So let's just get right into it. We are starting off with the shotguns. So checking out the Mastiff first. The Mastiff has the ability to hit really high damage shots, but it is a shotgun that is semi-challenging to do so with. For me, the Mastiff is going to be C tier. Next up is the classic Mozamblam. Just kidding, the Mozambique. I wish it was the Mozamblam. If it was Mozamblam, it's going to be up here. But Mozambique, worst gun in the game, easily. It is D tier for me personally. The PK is the most versatile shotgun in the game, and it is the one that I think is the easiest to hit shots with. So for me, the PK is going to be A tier. Looking at the light weapons, the alternator is one that I absolutely love to use. It's one that I've always found success with, and the addition of having disruptor rounds currently makes this an A tier weapon for me. Fans of the channel know about me and the P2020. It is a gun that I really enjoy using, and I actually find a decent bit of success with, although I know people everywhere that's watching this video, if you see where I put this gun, you are going to cringe. But for me, the P2020 is a B tier weapon. Next on the list is the R301, and for me, this is easily one of the best weapons in the game, if not the best weapon. It does an immense amount of damage, and it is just so easy to hit shots with this weapon. So for me, R301, definitely S tier. The R99 is a weapon that has just seen a lot of nerfs recently, and it's become very difficult to one-clip an enemy. You just end up reloading lots. Maybe that's a skill issue, and that's on my part. But for me, the R9 is now in the B tier. Fans of the channel also know how much I enjoy using the RE45. When you got hammer points on this thing, it can absolutely shred enemies. But obviously, it's depending on that hop up. So for me, once again, this one is going to be B tier. Spitfire is an amazing gun. I absolutely love the Spitfire. I think that every game that I decide to pick it up, I tend to find success. And it partly comes from the damage it can do, the accuracy that it has. For me, it is an A tier weapon. Some people might think that is crazy high for it, but it's just got a great damage output. It's easy to control, easy to hit your shots with it. I mean, realistically, you can get 3 guys with 1 clip. The G7 Scout is one gun that I think gets overlooked often, but at the same time, sometimes it can be merited. It kind of falls between the B and C category for me. I'm going to put it into the B though, because it can be a good weapon when it's in the right person's hands. The car is the next one on the list, and with the car being basically the identical weapon to the R99, it is going to also fall into the B category. The 3030 repeater is one that is just incredible. It's either A or S tier. Personally, I'm going to put it S tier. I still think that it has the ability to just destroy people. So that one is the second in our S tier. With the nerfs to the R99 in the car, we've seen other submachine guns kind of have their chance to shine. And for me, the Prowler is an A tier weapon. The Rampage is one of those guns, once again, that it relies on something to reach its full ability. So kind of like the RE45 needs hammer points or the alternator needs disruptors. The Rampage really succeeds when you have that thermite attached to it. Without it, it can struggle sometimes, but it does lots of damage. It's easy to keep it accurate. So for me, the Rampage is A tier. Flatline is one of the most used weapons in the entire game, and it's for good reason. It's very powerful, and it's relatively easy to control. For me, the Flatline is A tier, bordering onto S. The Hemlock has been my favorite weapon in the game since the very first day that it came out. It is also S tier for myself personally. The versatility that you get with this weapon, the ability to switch to the single fire and absolutely roast enemies that way, is just a very good weapon. On to the energy weapons now. The Devotion is one that I just can't seem to get along with. Once again, you need that hop up for it to find the most success, having the turbocharger on it. Without it, it is slow to get going. You have to pre-fire like crazy. You do have a long clip, but right when you start to pre-fire so early in a fight, it kind of loses that luxury. It's just not one that's good for me. I have the Devotion alongside the Mozambique as the worst weapons in the game. The Havoc continues to be one of the most slept on weapons in the game in my opinion. It is incredibly strong, and although it does require the turbocharger to shoot as well as it can, it's pretty easy to pre-fire this one, and it's much easier to control the recoil pattern. It does so much damage and the clip feels like it goes on forever. For me, the Havoc is A tier. The L-Star is another one of those weapons that I think gets slept on often. It's a very, very good weapon, but it's not quite enough to fit into that A tier of weapons, so for me it is going to be in the B tier. The Nemesis is yet another super strong burst weapon in the game, with an increasingly fast fire rate the more that you shoot it. It has the ability to deal tons of damage, and for me, it is an A tier weapon. Onto the triple take now. The triple take is once again a really, really good weapon. It's not great, and for that reason, it is going to meet the L-Star in the B tier of weapons. Like I talked about previously with the Prowler kind of having its renaissance period with the nerfs for the R9 and the car, that is absolutely what is happening here with the Volt. The Volt has quickly become one of the best, if not the best weapon in the entire game. It is so lethal at close range, and its accuracy is just unparalleled. Moving on to our sniper rifles now, and starting with the charge rifle. This is the type of weapon that it really depends on whose hands the weapons are in, because if you're using the charge rifle and you are very good at hitting shots with the charge rifle, then this is an incredibly good gun. It has the ability to one-shot guys at long ranges, has the ability to do tons of damage at that mid to long range. So it is a very, very good weapon in the right hands, and for me, it goes into the A tier. The longbow leaves a little bit to be desired just based on the amount of damage that it can hit. Having the skull piercer obviously increases that, but it just doesn't quite do enough for me personally. It falls into the C tier of weapons. The Sentinel is one of my favorite weapons, and being able to boost it up with just one cell is super powerful, and something that I do all the time. You might have noticed it in shorts that you've seen here on the channel, and if you haven't seen those, be sure to go check those out. But for me personally, the Sentinel is an S tier weapon. So this is my tier list. If we are to look at the heirloom weapons, I could include all 4 of those in the S tier. I think they are all incredibly powerful. I think that there are so many good weapons to choose from in this game, and there are so many different combinations of weapons you can use and find success with, which is part of the reason why I love this game so much. So this right here is our final tier list for the weapons in Apex Legends. All right, we have made our way to the end of our first ever tier list here on the channel. I had an awesome time making this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed as much as I enjoyed making it. And I can't wait to see your reactions to it in the comments down below. Be sure to let me know whether I was on the mark, if I was way off, where I was right, where I was wrong. Be sure to let me know down in the comments. And if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like on it. If you're new around here, maybe think about subscribing. And hopefully you guys have an amazing rest of your day. See you next time. Peace.